Why are so many people overwhelmed with clutter? Disorganization is causing shame, suffering, friendships, time, money. People just like you, wondering where and how to create an organized lifestyle. This podcast offers expert tips and solutions for your clutter obstacles. My name is Rachel Seavey, and this is the Hoardganize Podcast.
Hey, collectors. Welcome to the Hoardganize Podcast. I'm your host, professional organizer, Rachel Seavey. And today we're talking about fires and emergencies and how prepared we really are. So we moved, and that was quite the process. I'm so glad to be finally done with that. And it's not bad. It's really not bad. I totally thought I would hate it, but I don't. So I am pleasantly surprised that I still like it here. It's a big change. So anyway, well, the other night, the fire alarm went off, and I live in a large community. So I had no idea what this even meant. Some of you might already know what I mean by this, but anyway, let me start out. It was super hot. We've been having a lot of heat waves here in California, and my son thinks this is so weird, but I was literally like laying in bed with my dog Star, and I was like rubbing ice cubes like on her necks and on her paws. I mean, it was really, really hot, and the air conditioner could not even keep up. It was super hot, and she was loving it. So whatever, I don't care what he thinks, but I was, living my best life as I try and do. And the next thing you know, I mean, it was like so startling. It was alarming. It was disorienting. All of a sudden, this really loud alarm just started going off, just blaring. And not only that, I got a chance to notice that I have these super ridiculously obnoxious lights in every room that flash. Maybe if you're deaf, I'm thinking is what it's for, which is great. But like, I just was, zero notice. I was not prepared. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? It was, 10 at night. It was already hot, exhausted. I wasn't barely dressed. And so anyway, this thing's going off, and it immediately is like piercing, penetrating, and terrifying. And of course, you're like, what the heck is going on? Is it a fire? Am I going to die? Like, you immediately go into fight or flight. And it's funny because I was talking to some friends of mine. I don't know. It was recently though. And they were like, what would you grab if there was a fire? We were talking about that kind of a thing. And I was like, oh, well, I would definitely grab, my photos. And I said, my dad's painting, which is like pretty big. But I do love it. But it's just funny, like when you think ahead of time, you're like, oh, and then I would, of course, bring my pets. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, when it's that terrifying, you do not have time to go looking for photos. I mean, I just wanted to get dressed, and then I met my kiddo in the living room, and he was panicking and terrified. And the dogs were just freaking out. I mean, their little eardrums. So it was just piercing. It was super scary. And so I grabbed one dog, he grabs the other, and we just like slip on our flip-flops and start shuffling down the hallway and going down the stairwell with a bunch of other people. And it was loud. I mean, my dogs had a couple of accidents while we were running down. It was really terrifying. I'm trying to get you, because when it's an emergency, I mean, like, you really don't have time to think. So I was just so stressed out. So we all came outside, and like from the outside, you could actually still hear the alarm, and it was still piercing. And I was like, oh my God, I left my bearded dragon. I feel really bad. And so I'm really like feeling vulnerable sharing this with you because I love her. I've had her for 11 years. And it wasn't that I didn't think about her, but in that moment, like I really didn't. Like I grabbed the dogs and I grabbed my kid. Like we didn't even grab his insulin. So I'm really exposing myself there. But I mean, that's easy to get here in America. And I mean, it would have been easy to replace and not worth dying over. But like in an emergency, I want you to start thinking about how prepared you are. And I'm going to be asking some questions, to help provoke some thought, to help you get a grasp on what is really important, because that's what happened to me. So if you don't have something to write with, I suggest you definitely grab something, because we're going to get into some writing on this episode.
Overcome Compulsive Hoarding with That Hoarder is a podcast by me, That Hoarder. I talk in depth about my own experience with hoarding disorder. I talk about how it feels and why we do it. I look at tips, techniques and strategies that help and don't help. And I interview experts from therapists to researchers and others affected by hoarding disorder. Find the podcast at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk or search Overcome Compulsive Hoarding with That Hoarder in your favourite podcast app.
So we're all outside and everybody apparently has dogs and babies and there's a wheelchair. I mean, I wasn't the only one that was put out. And we were out there for like 45 minutes and I was so stressed out about Jade, the dragon. I mean, I was crying. I'm going to just keep it real. I was crying and I was like, oh my God, how could I forget her? She's going to burn, So I was totally freaking out. So finally the fire trucks came and left and it was a cooking fire and it was not anything that spread to the building. But golly, I mean, I felt really, 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 really bad about not bringing her. And also equally as bad about not grabbing my kiddo's insulin in that moment. I didn't even grab my wallet or my phone or my keys. And I'm assuming, and they were all right there. It's not like I couldn't find them. I was just so jolted by this experience. And I was terrified, like, oh my God, like what do I, it was like fight or flight. So I was just relieved. And then I was also kind of relieved. Like I was glad I didn't come out running, like with my dad's painting, in my hands and like, I don't know. So it really made me reflect on you all, because I know if I'm not prepared for something like that, then I should be sharing with you all or having you think about this kind of a topic. And it's not fun. I know it's not super like fun organizing trip, but it's definitely an invitation for you to realistically think about your situation. And I will be doing the same with mine. And so I'm just sharing my own personal story so that you start thinking about your situation. So take a moment. If you haven't grabbed something to write with, please go ahead and grab something now. There are 10 questions. So you might have to pause and replay. And it's just a game. It's light. Like you don't have to get all stressed out about it. But I really want you to think about these questions and your answers. And there'll be about 30 seconds in between each question where you'll have time to fill out. But if that's not long enough, just go ahead and pause the episode and then, play it when you're ready. Okay. The first question is, are you prepared in the event of a fire? Are you prepared in the event of a fire? The second question, what does being prepared mean to you? Because everybody has a totally different idea of what being prepared even means. Does it mean you have a fire extinguisher? Does it mean you have your most precious belongings at a hand's reach? Does it mean you have your passwords somewhere where they're easily saved electronically, or stuff is saved in case it's in a fire? What does being prepared mean to you? Okay, this one's a little bit harder. What are the 3 things that you would grab if you could only take 3 things, and not counting pets or family members, because they're for sure, right? Only 3 things. You have 30 seconds. Now, I want you to think, if you do have pets and family, are they safe? Are they prepared? Are they covered in the event of a fire? There's no judgment here. You know, if you have cats that hide everywhere, or multiple cats, or a dog that's skittish, you know, if they hear an alarm, you definitely want to take them into account, like your kiddos and what they need, right? So is your family safe? Are your pets safe? The 5th question, are your documents safe? Your vital documents, your passports, your birth certificates, your social security cards, are those vital documents safe? Are they in a fireproof safe? Are they in a safety deposit box? Do you have them electronically? Number 6, are your photographs safe? I know a lot of us are still in the age of photographs. We might have some framed ones. We might have some loved ones that have gone. And that's one of the few things we have left of them. And I know it's something that's really important to a lot of people. So are your photographs safe? Have you considered backing them up electronically in the event of a fire? Number 7, are your valuables safe? I can't tell you how many times I have found a diamond ring, cash, countless treasures that are of major monetary value amongst my lovely clients' homes. Sometimes they're very, very precious items that are mixed in with the clutter. So I want you to think about your valuables. Maybe you've got a wedding ring or something that's been passed down, or you've got some watches that are of value or some handbags. I don't know, everybody has their own idea of what is valuable to them. So it could be something as simple as a letter from your grandfather to your grandmother. Just think about what's valuable to you, and is it safe in the event of a fire? Now, here's a different kind of a question, and it's something that I've asked a lot of my clients, and most of them say yes. Would you feel relieved in just a littlest way, even just a little bit of relief, if your house burned down and all that stuff burned in it? Not your pets or family, but that way you didn't have to make all of those decisions. Like, you could get a fresh start. Would you be relieved if your house burned down and you lost all of your clutter? Be honest. You might have a little relief. That might terrify you. I don't know. But I feel like everybody has just a slight hope that they wouldn't have to deal with making all those decisions. It's just hypothetical. Question number 9. What would you miss the most? Obviously not pets and people if your house burned down. What would you miss the most? Would it be artwork? Would it be photographs, memories, dishes, clothing, fancy things you bought but didn't get a chance to use? Electronics, I've got a lot of gadget collectors. What would you miss? And then the last one is kind of a three steps. I want you to write down 3 steps after doing all of this work and listening to the podcast. 3 steps to make sure that you are prepared, whatever that means to you, in the event of a fire. So now that you have this information and you're thinking about it, are you going to scan in your vital files? Is that an action item you want to take? Are you diabetic and need insulin? And now you've got an emergency go bag, which I put in my fridge. That's how I'm going to be prepared on that one. What about valuables, keys, cash, wallet? Are they easy to locate? Phone. You really want medication, aside from insulin. I mean, just medication in general is an important thing to grab if you have to take it daily, right? So what are 3 things that you can do to make sure that you're prepared going forward, that you can do now, soon, in case you have a fire or another emergency? I mean, we're here in earthquake country, and I know a lot of you all are dealing with some severe weather elsewhere. So what would you do in an emergency? What are 3 things that you can make sure that you do now so that you are prepared, is the last question. If you are watching this on YouTube, please make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you ring that notification bell. That way you are notified when I get new episodes out, which will be a little bit more frequently, I promise, now that everything is more settled in my life. And I thank you so much for bearing with me. Please feel free to leave a comment with any of these answers or what you would do, or you can call me a jerk for leaving my dragon behind. I deserve it. Also, if you are not following me on Facebook, and if you're not part of our private Hoardganize Podcast Facebook group, make sure you send a request. I will approve it right away, and you will start meeting a lot of lovely people like yourself. I am also teaching a class every month, and this month, Julie Caraccio and I are talking about end-of-life organizing. Did you know that a lot of people avoid end-of-life organizing? And I have been in that situation so many times where someone has not left a will behind, or a will is buried, or there are no instructions on how to find this will. And it's really quite a dilemma. So please join us. That's going to be July 25th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard. We are keeping it real organizing on Eventbrite, but I will definitely have the link to that and to everything else I've mentioned on the description of this episode. Thank you so much for your loyal support, collectors. I look forward to putting out more podcasts and to hearing from you in the future. Until next time, and remember, happiness is a place between too little and too much.
Thank you for listening to the Hoardganize Podcast. Please make sure you're subscribed and join our Hoardganize Podcast Facebook page and get additional tips and challenges.